So welcome guys, Chris Whaley from Decisive Coaching. Helping people to think better so they can feel better, so ultimately they can make better decisions and create the life ultimately that we all deserve. So in order for us to develop our life and become better, more conscious, more aware people, have better relationships, have better health, and perhaps more financial security if that is what it is that you're looking for. Either way, there really is only one way that we can have all of the above, and that's to develop our own conscious awareness, our own ability of understanding ourselves and those people around us, the world around us. And what better way of doing that, I believe, is a model that I'm going to share with you today on this video and another 4 videos after this. So it's going to be a 5-part series. It's all going to be about the 6 human needs. If anybody out there has heard of a guy called Tony Robbins, maybe you probably have. Tony Robbins is considered probably one of the top kind of mentor coaches in the world, and about 30 years ago he developed this model called the 6 human needs. Now it's kind of an updated an improved version, I personally believe, of the hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I think he updated probably 35 years ago. And like I say, I think it's probably more accurate, easier to understand, and very powerful, extraordinarily powerful. And I haven't managed to find yet any exceptions to the rule, most certainly when it comes to my life. You may well find one yourself, but myself and maybe the thousands of people that I've helped over the last 15 years of working with this model, we'll see what you think. If you apply this to yourself, how do we apply something like this? Well, really all we need to do is to embark on a little journey like this with an open mind and be willing to acknowledge not just the good stuff. It's all good stuff really, but what people would consider maybe not so good is when we recognize maybe some of the more negative behaviors of what we're going to go through these videos. If we apply it just by acknowledging it, at least just acknowledge that, right, okay, yeah, I might do that. As well as just the good positive stuff, we all want to kind of take credit for being good and positive and contributing and growing and all of that, and doing everything for the right reason. But I want to point something out, and that is that all behaviors, all human behaviors, they all come with a positive intent. The driving factor behind it, the motivation behind it, is always a positive intent. So without further ado, I would like to go through this. So what we have on the screen right now is just a simple breakdown before we go through the individual slides. Is we have the first need, not any particular order really, other than certainty tends to be the primary need that most certainly affects all human beings, and that is that we all meet these needs. By the way, we all have a need, all human beings. If you're a human watching this, you have a need for certainty. Certainty is self-explanatory really to a degree, isn't it? It's that need to be safe, the need to have shelter, the need to have food and water. That's the base level need of knowing that we can survive and at least be comfortable. Now, if we get too comfortable, have you ever noticed what happens? We have a need for change or variety. What we call on this model here is uncertainty. So when things are too certain, a little bit too predictable, it becomes boring. So that's why we have a need built within our nervous system, is that we need stimulus. We need the world to push back at us. We need some kind of resistance. And then of course we have a need for love and connection. All human beings have a need for love, to be loved and to love, and to be connected to other other people or animals or species of some sorts. We need some form of connection, and of course we all have that need within us to connect with ourselves. Significance, uniqueness, or individuality, a need to be important, stand out from the rest. Those four there that I've just pointed out, they're of our physical self, our hardware, if you like. I like to call it the hardware, the tangible, physical, emotional, muscles and bones and blood and tissues and chemicals. That's our hardware, us. But then, of course, regardless of your beliefs, I think it's indisputable, I would have thought by now, isn't it, that we do have some form of invisibleness that allows the hardware to operate. We can call that spiritual side of us, if you like, whatever works for you. Software, energy, God, whatever you want to call it, nature. But there is an invisible part of us. There's an invisible energy, spiritual side, software that is also buzzing around within us, isn't there? And all around us, and probably connects everything else in the universe. I would probably say myself. Anyway, let's not go off track. So those spiritual needs, they consist of two primary ones. Is our need to grow. We have a need to grow. What I mean by that is, have you ever found yourself in a time of life where you're kind of feeling like your life's not really going anywhere? Maybe intellectually and psychologically you feel a little bit kind of like out of date, and you feel that you want to learn something new and become just better overall, rather than just the things that we're easily within our control, like changing our physical self, changing ourselves from maybe being overweight to losing weight, or underweight to gaining weight, or we can change ourselves physically with maybe tattoos and piercings and all sorts of like modifications that we can do. They're all within our control, aren't they? But of course, so many of us, me included for most of my life, is that I was ignoring this kind of longing and need within myself for my software to be updated. I kind of wasn't working and operating and functioning in this world, and I felt like I needed updating. And of course, that's what it is that we need to do, and that's really the purpose of my videos, is to help people that are on their little journey of personal development and growth, and venturing out into something new is all about. And of course, that desperate need that we have is that sense of growth. We need to grow and become better. And why would we have a need for any of this when we look at meeting our needs and the needs for uncertainty and connecting and being important and playing a significant role, and the need to grow? What's the whole point of the whole thing, really? What's the meaning? And I think Robbins' model here kind of gives us the answer of the meaning to life, and that really is ultimately we meet all of these other needs to contribute back. First of course, is to contribute back to ourselves. We have to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first of all before we can make any change and make any difference in the world. But ultimately, it's to contribute. The feeling that you're giving rather than just taking is quite a nice feeling, isn't it? After you've received all your gifts and presents, maybe at Christmas when you was a kid, and if you had any gifts to give other people, that was pretty exciting as well, sometimes even more exciting. So that need to contribute back, like playing out your purpose in a meaningful way, giving and contributing beyond oneself, is ultimately it meets growth and contribution, meets both of those the spiritual needs. Okay, so let's have a little click through on these slides. And okay, so certainty and uncertainty is basically a paradox. You've probably worked that one out for yourselves, of course. And now here we have something, attract, and let me just you need to be able to see that, sorry about this. So attract and repel. Attract and repel. Now these attract or they repel if they are coming, maybe using by using vehicles that are not particularly behaviors. What I mean by vehicles, I'll go through that in a moment. Using low-level ways and strategies and habits and behaviors to meet our needs, quite often it can turn into this perfect example here actually is, I reference this book quite a few times in my videos, is the human magnet syndrome. When you have a toxic relationship between two people, it's two people that have been meeting their needs on low-level ways using low-level unproductive vehicles. Of course, they may well meet each other. So love and connection, we all have a need for love and connection, and we all have a need for significance and uniqueness. But the problem is, if we prioritize significance over and above anything else, we become so unique. Quite often that can be interpreted as like repulsive or arrogant, or egotistical or narcissistic perhaps, and it will repel other people away from you rather than attract. Love and connection, of course, attracts. It's all about loving, giving out love and attract, and receiving love within. So we all have a need for all of these. So what's the next slide is, and of course, growth and contribution. A vehicle. What is a vehicle? A vehicle is a behavior, a habit, a thought, a substance, an action. So the things that we do, that we use and we mobilize and utilize to go from not having the need met to having the need met. So quality vehicles we have plus, which would represent obviously positive. So there are positive behaviors, positive actions, positive substances, maybe positive things that we will utilize or mobilize for going about meeting our needs. And of course there's negative vehicles that we would use to meet our needs, and there's some in between that are kind of not really good for you, not good for you, kind of neutral. Don't really matter whether you meet your needs with them or not. You're probably not going to grow and you're not going to contribute ultimately. Here we go for the first one. So this first video is about certainty. Certainty, some key words that represent the word certainty is stability, comfort, safe, secure, control. Okay. So like I say, it's the base level. The primary reason behind our need for certainty ultimately is to protect us. So evolutionary, the part of our brain, the amygdala, would have developed in basically just to provide one service to us, and that's keep us safe, look out for threats. So our default setting, believe it or not, is in fact scanning and looking for problems and anything that could attack us and harm us on a physical level. So that's the part of the brain that developed to look after us. Of course, some people are still living in their lizard brain, aren't they? As we know that. People that like routine. People that like routine so much that if you was to suggest anything that breaks their routine, they kind of go into the opposite need, and that is they start, oh shit, that makes me feel really uncertain if you suggest breaking my routine. Does anyone know anyone that's like that? I think we all know, because it's probably the most common one where people really struggle. So you have to remember as well some distinctions that might be worth writing down, because if you haven't already done so, grab a sheet of paper and a pen and pause me until you've gone and got it. Okay, you've got it. Now jot these down, because this is how we apply this. This is how you develop, you grow, you then you become better. You can develop better understanding of yourself, the other human beings in this world, and ultimately interact better with people, have a better understanding of firstly yourself and then other people. It's gonna completely transform your level of consciousness, the place that you operate from and you have been operating from, especially if your life seems to be going on this what we call a crazy eight of like it's okay sometimes and then it goes to shit and then it goes okay and then it goes to shit and then it goes okay, and it's kind of on this constant, you know, Groundhog Day feeling. Okay, so apply it to you. How do you apply this to you? And first of all, before I go sidetracked again, write down these distinctions, and that is we all value one over all of the others. Some people, they will have a high need for certainty. Some people will have a high need for significance. Some people will have a high need for love and connection. Okay, so when the chips are down, basically, is when we have an issue or a problem. That's usually where things, quite often, they go to shit, because we don't know ourselves, we don't understand ourselves, we don't understand the other people that are involved in this issue, this problem. When the chips are down and the shit hits the fan, we don't understand it, so we are just reacting rather than responding. So we all prioritize. Or we can see it another way. We have a low tolerance for uncertainty, for example. So somebody who loves routine, and you was to suggest something outside of that routine and they start flapping, is that they probably have a low tolerance for the opposite one, the uncertainty. Making sense? Okay, avoidance. Avoidance is another vehicle. These are all vehicles, by the way, this list. They're vehicles. They are learnt behaviors. They are learnt beliefs, learnt strategies, coping mechanisms, whatever you want to call them, is that we've learnt them as a means of dealing with having the absence of this need. Does that make sense? So routine, avoidance, so we can avoid things, gives us a sense of certainty, because if I avoid it, at least I'm staying safe. Makes sense? Plan. Develop a plan. It's actually a good one. Routine is a good positive vehicle for meeting our needs for certainty. But the problem comes when your routine is broken and you start getting wobbly. Then you may want to revisit that and address that. I'll show you right at the end of all of these 6 sections about how to work out what's a good vehicle and what's not a good vehicle. Okay, really cool little section right at the very end. Make sure you go through all of them first of all. The other way that you apply this to yourself as well, by the way, is acknowledgement. That's all it is. Acknowledgement. If what I'm saying is kind of ticking some boxes and saying something to you, and you're recognizing maybe, oh yeah, I do this, yeah, and I do it for that reason. It's almost like he's reading my mind here. No. It's all really common. There's very few patterns of why people do what they do, and you're just being triggered by what I'm saying. Just acknowledge it. Don't get angry and beat yourself up and stop watching the video. Just carry it on, because know that you're working on yourself, and you're going to be so much better by the end of just this model. Okay, so just write it down and acknowledge it. Get on with it, Chris. Controlling is one of the most common vehicles that human beings, they use to meet their needs for certainty, to regain a sense of control. Because when you're made to feel uncertain and you now desperately want to be back feeling certain, you're just basically wanting control back. Control's been taken away from you, or you've surrendered your sense of control. So controlling other people is probably the worst worst vehicle that you can use to meet your needs for certainty. Controlling radio controlled cars and aeroplanes, and maybe controlling your games machine, or controlling something on your computer, or controlling something that's inanimate objects of some sort or whatever, is absolutely fine. Controlling something is okay. Controlling other people, absolutely not. That's probably may need to visit me in my office if that is one of your issues. But you can sort that out by acknowledging without shaming and beating yourself up. Okay, it's far more common than what you'll ever believe. So controlling other people is not a good vehicle. But if you are one of those, acknowledge it and write it down. Procrastination, when you know that you should be making videos to help people, but that other screen over there, and YouTube and Rumble, it's so tempting to just steer you away from what it is that you're supposed to be doing. So procrastination gives you a sense of certainty, because what you are being attracted to over there and drawn over there, like almost like there's something's pulling me over there, and you have to resist it. You have to resist it, don't we? So procrastination meets our needs for certainty. Attention seeking, attention seeking. Okay, so attention seeking can give us a sense of comfort and certainty that I'm still loved. Maybe attention seeking on social media meets our needs for certainty. Other things as well, but we'll go through those. Facts. Having the facts is good sense of, it's a good vehicle for using certainty, unless you're bashing at other people over there with the facts. No, that's just controlling, and that's just being an idiot, isn't it? That's being a dick. Is having the facts to prove someone else, prove someone else wrong, to give you yourself a sense of being right. It's just to be in control again. It's not a good way. But having facts maybe in a pub quiz, yeah, pretty cool. Gives you a good sense of certainty that there's nothing wrong with being right if you know the answers. Food, very common one, isn't it? Overeating to give you a sense of being full of comfort. Smoking, exactly the same. Sense of faith, having a sense of faith in something else, having a set of beliefs that no matter what, my life will work. No matter what happens to me, I always find a way through it. It's a good sense of good set of vehicles, one of the best, in fact. Where controlling other people is probably the worst. Having a sense of faith, it doesn't necessarily mean in some sort of religious dogma. Doesn't mean to say that you have to have faith in some kind of God. It's nothing to do with that at all. It's having a sense of faith that no matter what happens to you tomorrow, you're going to find your way through it. Self-belief, a good healthy level of self-esteem. God, very common way of meeting our needs for certainty. But if we put all of our faith in and put all of our certainty in God, and it doesn't work out exactly how you expect it to, then sometimes that can upset our external religious beliefs, can't it? And of course, depending on what your idea of God is. For mine, it's probably more spiritual, or maybe energy that resonates throughout all substance and in the areas and gaps between, whatever, nature, whatever we want to call it, the software that I was talking about in the beginning of this. Yeah, that's probably what my interpretation of God is. Learned helplessness gives people a sense of comfort and security and being safe. At least being safe is, you try something once, maybe it doesn't work, and you automatically give in, and if you keep doing that, you develop a sense of learned helplessness, like I'm helpless, and that sometimes can give us a sense of certainty or a base level of comfort, maybe even a sense that somebody else is going to come and save you, because maybe they always do. Belief, a good sense of belief. Belief that you know something that somebody else doesn't is a belief. A belief in the external world, beliefs about politics, the belief about health, your beliefs about other people, your beliefs about oneself, your beliefs around all sorts of topics and subjects and everything else. It can give us a good sense of certainty, especially if your beliefs that you hold to be true is based on some form of past experiences, and it seems to work out for you. Good sense. It's a good set of beliefs to have, and it's a good vehicle to have, of course, to meet your needs for certainty. We all have beliefs. It's just down to how productive are your beliefs, and how many of your beliefs lead to some form of growth and contribution. OCD tendencies. So if you've ever wondered why people have OCD tendencies, is that everything has to be lined up, everything has to be just so. It's because they have a high need for certainty. It's a primary value for them. These are all values, by the way. All of these six needs, it's what we call values in psychology. It's what we value most of all. So we value certainty, and things don't quite work out how we expect it to be. It can leave us with disappointment. So we have to rejig and we have to revisit our values of what's really important to us. Because when we do that, things then start coming together. So just a quick recap on what you're supposed to be doing is write these down, acknowledge if you are good and not so good, by the way, the good ones and the not so good ones, just write them down, and maybe even things that I haven't spoken about. Maybe I'm just firing off perhaps a few little light bulbs up there, and write them down. So you now know that we have a need for certainty. What is it that you do? What is it that you have been doing up until now? Okay, that's either leading to good results or not such good results. How have you wanted to stay in control? Write them down. Okay, so which one is certainty one of your primary ones? Okay, so I'll see you on the next video, which will of course be uncertainty. I'll see you shortly.